Good evening, Wood County. I'm Brooke Ebersole, General Manager here at BG24 News. Every week, we bring you the stories that matter most on campus, in the community, across the state, and across the nation. The Producers Panel is where we take a step back and talk about the stories in our own opinion. But these opinions do not reflect the views of the organization and do not impact the way we cover these or any other stories. Tonight, we'll discuss a Holocaust survivor who recently spoke on our campus. Then we'll examine the many different ways the winter weather affects students on and off campus, before finally discussing the latest actions President Obama is taking against ISIS. It's all here on your BG24 News Producers Panel. Again, for joining BG24 News panel tonight, I'd like to take a minute and introduce our panel to you. To my left, we have Amy Steigerwald, reporter and anchor for us. And to my right is Matt Heitkamp, executive producer. And to the right of Matt is Nick Dombey, who is Amy's co-anchor and also a reporter. Thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to me.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Holocaust survivor Leslie Schwartz presented his untold story at BGSU on Thursday. Reporter Amy Steigerwald says the turnout was larger than the university expected.
The Bowling Green community gathered together on Thursday, February 5th to hear Holocaust survivor Leslie Schwartz tell his story. Packed crowds wrapped through and around the Bowling Green State University Math and Science building, forcing Schwartz to give his presentation twice. BGSU students had this to say on the matter.
I think it's important to hear Holocaust survivor stories, to understand the history that they're transmitting to us. Many of them are passing on, so I think it's important that we hear their stories now.
I think it's really important to learn about these things, and I think it's part of our history, and I think we need to get educated about it.
History major and teaching assistant Anthony Pearson says the history department did not prepare for such large crowds, but were happy with the results.
I was not expecting a crowd this big. At the history department, we were actually expecting something a lot smaller, and so we've been really promoting it, and it's really great to see it turn out this big.
Leslie Schwartz gave his presentation twice, each presentation lasting an hour. He spoke about his time in Auschwitz and his experience aboard the death trains. He also discussed how learning the German language helped him survive.
It was very inspirational, and it was obviously a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Holocaust survivor stories tug at the hearts of many, and Schwartz has proved to be nothing less than inspirational. Reporting for BG24 News, I'm Amy Steigerwald.
Well, Amy, I bet it was not only cool to film that, but also go to be able to see him speak.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to have a survivor come to BGSU, that's something that not everyone gets to get the opportunity to do in their life. And the fact that he came to our university to personally talk to students and community members was really cool. And to see the overwhelming response was even more impressive. There were so many, the lines wrapped through the Math and Science building. They went around the building outside, and that was a story in itself, how many people showed up to this and how many people were interested in what he had to say.
Like you said, yeah, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see someone like that speak, especially since that generation that's not going to be here much longer. So people need to take the opportunity to hear from these people and hear these stories.
Exactly, and his story was astounding. He really went through a lot with being on the death trains and being in Auschwitz and then building his life back up after his experience in the concentration camp. So to hear anyone like that speak is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and extremely inspirational.
Wow, that's something I just came from a class at the time, and I couldn't. I mean, there's too many people in there. I just couldn't grab a seat.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I heard there were people like standing in the back too, right?
Yeah,
I mean, not everyone could get a seat.
He gave the presentation twice, which originally wasn't supposed to happen.
That was not the plan,
but
yeah.
Because so many people were in the room and lining the building and the aisleways, he was very generous and said, I will do this twice. He did unfortunately have to cut down the amount of time for each presentation, but still, at least everyone was able to see him.
Yeah, and the thing I think that was interesting about it was the university did not really push this event to people.
No.
You know, I heard about it, it was in a campus update, that was really all I heard about it. So to see that many people turn out for, you know, what they just thought was a regular Holocaust speech is incredible.
Right.
You know, that they turned out to hear something like that.
Yeah, I heard about it in a class when my professors told me, but like a history event like that, the best way to learn it and to get experience from it is to hear someone who has actually took part in that event.
Exactly.
It's the best way to learn, to educate students on history, which is a very important subject.
Yeah, and I know for my class, my professor was saying, I'll give extra credit for people who go and, write a little short paper on it. But all the people I was talking to there weren't there for extra credit. They were there because this is a Holocaust survivor speech, and I want to see this. So that speaks about BGSU students to me.
Yeah, I'm also in an Iraq War cinema class, and he talks about, even just like World War II vets, anyone who lived in that generation and experienced that whole event, go talk to them because they have some unique stories about, how history all went down.
Exactly.
I can remember in elementary school they would ask us to bring our grandparents in on Veterans Day, and when I was so young, I really didn't understand that. I didn't understand why that was so cool. And looking back, I was 8, but I wish I had.
Right,
I wish I had really seen how incredible and how you're not going to have that forever. Like you said, this generation is slowly on its way out. We're going to have secondary sources of all this information, which is inevitable, but is sad. So it's great that people took that opportunity.
Yeah, and to get a personal experience from someone who actually experienced it is even that much more touching.
I mean, yeah, like who wouldn't have the opportunity, jump on the opportunity to talk to someone from like revolutionary times?
Yeah, exactly.
It's something like a big event like that.
That's going to be our grant for the revolution is going to be
and
our
someone
grandparents.
in the future down the line, they're going to wish that they had the opportunity to talk to people who lived in that time period.
Yeah, I agree, definitely needing to talk to the old generation because, like with my grandparents, they both served in World War II and they passed away before I could really understand and appreciate that. And the stories just from that era alone, you don't think they were real. Like, it's like, no, that didn't happen. It's way too good to be true. But it didn't. It's just those firsthand accounts just verifying that are just something to listen to.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said too that they took this speech and they did not try to cater it to 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. They didn't say, follow us on social media, we'll play videos and stuff. And this guy just came in and talked. And he just projected his story out there and people sat and listened for the whole thing. And I think that speaks to the material that he talked about, but that speaks to the students who attended it as well. And I think that's an incredible thing.
Very much so.
Coming up when we return, we will discuss how winter weather affects students on and off campus with all the black ice that we're dealing with. Stay with us. The winter weather is in full effect and is affecting students on and off campus in many different ways, from slippery roads and walkways to class cancellations and more. Campus police advise students to take precautions while walking and driving around icy areas. BGSU officer John Ludhart says awareness of your surroundings is necessary while driving. I did not say that right.
The biggest thing is when you get on top of it is not to slam on your brakes, not to try to steer out of it. That's what makes it worse. I mean, you're really at the mercy of your vehicle.
Well, Nick, that was probably quite the experience to go out there on the ice and try to set the camera up without slipping.
Well, in one of in one of the shots, you saw me slip and fall.
Yeah.
I was walking along and I was like, okay, I can slip here for a shot because I was walking to my morning class.
The extra mile.
Yeah. Creative.
Yeah, I was walking to class and there's ice everywhere, and I was just like, I can do a story on this because
it's really a pain because I commute to school, and so obviously just driving I have to deal with it, and some days it's okay, some days it's just terrible. The roads are just covered, and then once I get on campus I'm not at the danger zone yet because I have to walk from those parking lots way out there to where my class is holding and try not to slip and fall.
Yeah. My mom is an alma mater here, and she would walk from the commuter lot, and she slipped and broke her ankle on black ice. Yeah, and she said it never healed right. It was just the worst injury she's ever had. And I mean, if you're not careful, really, that can hurt you a lot.
And it's hard because when you're, when the roads are slippery, they have big machines that can go on the roads and drop salt to help you, but the sidewalks, they're not as well protected, and that's what's mainly being used on a college campus.
I'll tell you who's very underappreciated is the campus ops people that are here from like midnight to like 4 in the morning.
Oh, definitely.
Out there, because I used to work for campus ops. I don't anymore, thank God, because I would hate to have to be out there during these conditions doing that kind of work.
Yeah, and people get on Twitter and they say, I can't believe BG hasn't salted the sidewalks. Like, they are trying.
They are.
They
really
and
are.
it's not something that you can just slap some salt down and then it's fixed. It'll melt, it'll refreeze overnight. It's not a one task kind of job. It's something that's got to be hit and hit and hit again.
It's also not instantaneous either. They probably put the snow out. I went to go shoot the story about 10 in the morning and they were salting everywhere. And it probably wasn't until about 2 that afternoon that the sidewalks were okay, because it takes time for that salt to get in and melt the ice.
Yeah. My favorite thing is when teachers, I'm late because I fall, and they say, "Why are you late?" And it's very obvious that I am in shambles. I fell and I came in. He was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm good. I fell on the ice. That's why I'm late."
I feel like most teachers and professors do understand that when it comes to icy conditions, people might be a little bit later. I would hope that they would understand that. I mean, we live in Ohio. We're used to this, especially if you live in Ohio your whole life like I have. I'm used to snowy conditions, driving on ice, walking on ice. It is actually kind of funny watching people, from California who get up there and they are just struggling to even walk on snow.
Yeah, well, in the snow especially, that snow really hit hard. I couldn't believe that BG canceled school for snow.
Oh, yeah.
That was not something I expected. Frigid temperatures, I expected maybe for ice, but for as much snow as we got, that was impressive.
Yeah, that was. What was the total? I remember my parents said up in Toledo it was 14 inches. I think it was somewhere around that around here. It was.
We were not in. Were we in a level 3 snow emergency?
Yeah.
We were, because that's why they canceled. And everyone says, "Oh, BG never cancels," and on BG cancels.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and the thing, me, I'm worried about what they're going to leave open. Where can I eat?
Yes.
How am I going to be able to feed? Not that the cups of soup in my room aren't substantial, but you looked into that, didn't you? What dining halls they kept open and what dining halls they kept closed?
Yeah, that was the first story I worked on. Amy really helped me with that. We did look into the dining halls and keeping we looked especially at the Oaks because they were still open, serving hot meals. I went in there for dinner because I was sick of just dry goods, and I was just like, okay, I want something to eat.
Yeah, I believe we have a package on
that,
right?
Let's
we do.
Go ahead
Let's
and
take a look.
Nick's package on the dining halls in the snow.
BGSU students were still able to enjoy a hot and fresh meal at the Oaks and Carillon dining halls despite the university declaring it a snow day. Smaller facilities remained closed, so the bigger dining halls could remain open. Director of Dining Services Mike Paulus explained why they chose to keep the large halls open.
So it's easier for us to actually manage the all you care to eats to produce the biggest bang for the buck for the students and taking care of the largest audience.
Paulus encourages students to regularly check the BGSU Dining Facebook and Twitter page for regular updates. Reporting for BG24 News, I'm Nick Dombey.
So you really just got down to the nitty-gritty, and they closed what? Carillon? Or kept? I'm confused.
Carillon and the Oaks were kept open, but I think the Sundials were closed, and the Union was definitely closed because that was outside management, so they couldn't get in with that. And most outtakes, I think some of them were open from what I remember.
They opened later in the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of them, they want to wait until the weather kind of clears up, but primarily their goal is to serve as many students with as much food as possible. So obviously, opening Panda Express isn't going to help the entire campus.
Yeah.
But opening the Carillon and opening the Oaks is going to provide more of a variation of food so that everyone has a little bit more to choose from in case there's allergies or something like that.
That's a good point. And like you talked about opening Panda Express, those are independent chains in themselves, so they honestly kind of make those calls, don't they, about whether they're going to open or not. I have a friend that works at Starbucks, and she was mad that she had to go in when there were people at Chicken Dippity who did not have to go in.
Huh.
And
I felt the same way about classes on that cancellation day because, much like some of the food places, in the morning it was all closed, and at a certain point it was reopened. Campus and all classes reopened at 6. I had a 6 to 9 class. I had a 6 to 9 class, so it was nice, getting a snow day for the morning in my first couple of classes, but then I have to go back to campus.
It wasn't like a real
9.
snow day.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a full snow day.
I have a class that starts at 4:30, and they said, well, classes resume at 5, and I said, well, does that mean I go? That's so close to the mark, and the teacher emailed us was just don't bother. Just stay home.
I wouldn't even.
Basically, what they stress, though, with the dining halls is to make sure that students check their social media, they check online, because a lot of them, I don't know if it's closed. They don't even know that there's a Twitter, that there's a Facebook, that there's all these options on how can tell them if it's open or not. Their parents are calling them and saying, this is open, this is open. It's right next door. You should be able to tell.
Yeah. Well, coming up when we return, we will discuss the latest actions taken in fight against ISIS. Stay with us. Early today, President Barack Obama asked Congress to formally authorize the use of military force against the terrorist group known as ISIS. This is the first time the president has made a request like this in 13 years. This definitely took me by shock this morning.
It kind of did, especially when you think about, when President Obama was elected, that was his thing to not make this kind of...
We were pulling the troops out.
Yeah, we're pulling the troops out. We are getting away from making this kind of action, this ask to Congress, and now that he has, it's
scary.
It's understandable, but it's a little surprising.
I think it's taken the world by storm with this whole thing, and he kind of had no choice but to say something about it.
Oh, yeah.
And it almost kind of makes me wonder, first we had Al-Qaeda, and now we have ISIS, and it's just almost like these things, they're just building on top of each other, and how long were we going to wait until, we stepped in and did something?
The only thing about this proposal I know is different. It's much more detailed than when we first, declared a war in Iraq and then in Afghanistan before that. It's a 3-year plan, apparently, it's more set. There is no, at the moment, intentions to deploy ground troops. It's just a variation of airstrikes and strategized other attacks like that. So it's different, but,
But, it is essentially what some people didn't want.
Right,
It was for the U.S. to step in with military force and take care of it.
And that's why I'm not really sure how Congress is going to take this. Because, in the American public, especially, how the reaction of what happened in Iraq, what happened in Afghanistan, the sort of failures that happened there, are they going to go for this or are they not?
Especially because it's not like we are fighting a country. We are fighting a group of anonymous, somewhat men. We don't have a specific plan, and we can't really have a plan.
Well, that was almost the issue in the first couple wars too.
Yeah, especially with since you have small groups, I think it's safer to go with the airstrikes than it would be putting in ground troops that would scare people. Be like, oh, I don't like that, and then they would go and either help us or join ISIS, which we don't want. So I think safe airstrikes is probably the safer way to go with this.
The only thing with airstrikes is there has to be so much precision involved with that because it's all or nothing, all on that single drop of a bomb. So that has to be precise.
There's got to be precision and there's got to be timing, and there's got to be a little bit of almost secretive. You take ground troops in there, everybody's going to know what's going on. And I almost think when you go for an airstrike, it is safer. But it's also a way to kind of sneak attack.
I would say it's definitely safer for our troops, which is a great thing. Yeah. At the same time, it might not be safer for other civilians that might get caught, which any kind of war it's not going to be though.
Right.
Doing nothing but being secretive with this is what we must do because they have been nothing but public with it, putting the videos on the internet, putting the videos, making the top news headlines. So we need to make this as small and as pinpointed as possible, and secretive.
They're definitely a group that needs to be dealt with. You hear about that family that got notified, to ISIS that their daughter died in an airstrike. And they're global. They use technology, so it's a different feeling than it was when we first went to Iraq and we went into Afghanistan.
Right.
Yeah, this is a lot of differences with them. You have the internet, just the technology since then. This is going to be a new type of warfare I think the world's going to see with airstrikes and then we have with ISIS propaganda spreading throughout the internet, and also the hackers group Anonymous. They're on the U.S.'s side this time.
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think they really have a side. They just do what they think is right.
It's just so hard to keep up with it all, because every time they say something about ISIS, oh, I remember that. No, there's something new now, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Coming up, we'll wrap up our show and discuss what our plans for Valentine's Day are. Stay with us. Well, as you all have heard me talk about a million times, my favorite holiday in the world is coming up on Saturday, Valentine's Day. I don't like Valentine's Day. I will be completely honest, I do not like Valentine's Day.
Well, I have a particular grudge against Valentine's Day because it is also my birthday. So, it's not fun to share a birthday with another holiday.
Another romantic holiday.
Especially one that is as hallmark and as ridiculous as what Valentine's Day is. At the same time, though, anyone who wants to go out and celebrate with, your respected.
Well, they sell bears and chocolate for your birthday.
But you gotta get, the chocolate, gotta get that the next day. That's what it's all
they mark it all down the very next day.
That's right.
My favorite are those, those little candy hearts that you had in they were just little boxes. You had 10 of them, and they were really just crystallized sugar, but I love them. I just love them, and they have little sayings on them. Yeah. That's about the only thing I like about Valentine's Day.
Yeah, the only thing another thing I don't like is obviously a lot of my, friends, we got to go on date night on Valentine's Day, but no, let's celebrate my birthday instead.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. But
I've actually got a date for Valentine's Day this year. I've got a date with a pizza.
Oh, nice.
They make those heart-shaped pizzas. You were talking about that earlier.
I can't wait to get one.
There's probably plenty of discounts of that kind of stuff around. You got to take advantage of that.
Oh, yeah,
that's the nice thing about not having a date on Valentine's Day or not having to buy stuff for someone. That is more money that's going back into my pocket and I'm not spending on chocolate that's going to rot and bears that are going to go into the corner. I just don't. I'm sorry I'm being so negative.
Right.
Just got to eat the chocolate faster.
Can we move to Earth Day? I like Earth Day.
Earth Day? When is Earth Day?
It's in April, I think.
There we go. Yeah,
You're supposed to plant a tree, or maybe that's Arbor Day. I think that's Arbor Day.
That's a holiday that at least doing something.
It's constructive.
Constructive. There you go. Yeah.
And it's not so marketed, you know.
Yeah.
That's the thing I hate about Valentine's Day is it's just so pushed. It's just right down your throat, you know.
Yep. It's how Hallmark makes their money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding. That's it for the BG24 News Producers Panel tonight. Make sure you check out these stories and more on our website and Facebook page. And feel free to tweet us on what your thoughts were on these stories and issues. Have a good night, everyone.